Now I'm sure you're all familiar with the Sega CD, an add-on that was released in 1992 for the 16-bit Sega Genesis. Many people don't know this, but there is a decent amount of light gun games for the Sega CD. A total of 7 were released between 93 and 94, 8 if you count the light gun game segments in Snatcher. And they had 2 more light gun games planned for the Sega CD but never released them, Space Pirates and Crime Patrol 2 Drug Wars. They released more light gun games for the Sega CD in 2 years than they ever released on the Sega Genesis. So why is this? And why isn't the Sega CD fondly remembered as a great light gun gaming console? The answer is the very thing that Sega CD was constantly forcing down our throats.
How could you let that happen?
That wasn't too bad, kid.
Pretend it's a game.
All of the light gun games on Sega CD were ports from the arcades, and FMV was the core out of 4 of them, with the other 2 being Lethal Enforcers 1 and 2, which are amazing games and have 0 FMV, and the other one being Corpse Killer, which has normal light gun shooting segments with FMV cutscenes.
But zombie bites, your choice, brah. Breaths are bullets.
Take a look at some of these comparisons. They come pretty much nowhere near each other in terms of clarity.
Mumps is the name. Whatever. Johnny Rocker, he was a bum. 2-timer, a double crosser.
The FMV is actually so grainy that the manual for Mad Dog Mccree diagrams one of the levels for you because the important items in it are so impossible to make out on your own. Now, even though the FMV is grainy, the game should still be playable, right? Well, not exactly. It's actually not fair to blame the FMV as the sole reason these ports aren't enjoyable. Another huge problem is actually the load times. You see, there's so many clips and they're all divided. There'll be a clip of a room, and then a clip loads of a bad guy trying to shoot you, and then 1 of 2 clips will load afterwards depending on if you shoot him or you kind of get a game over. It's not fluid at all, and your timing has to be precise if you want to continue on. Sometimes it all happens so fast, even if you think you should have gotten the kill.
Nurse, get me a hose. You'd make a good sprinkler.
And in all 4 of the FMV light gun games, when you get shot once, it loads up another kind of game over clip. So you get shot once, and you have to start all over. And what you end up getting with these games is just straight up trial and error. You have to know when and where the enemies are going to jump in so that you can shoot them the millisecond they appear. Another terrible thing with these FMV games is that since they have to load all these clips, there's pretty much never more than 1 enemy on the screen at a time. Other than being quick enough to get that first shot in, it's not really about that fast muscle twitch speed where you gotta kill 2 enemies within a second anymore. It's just straight up trial and error. And I understand trial and error is a core part of light gun games, don't get me wrong, but it can definitely be mitigated if you're fast enough. Not with these games. If you look on the internet, you'll actually find that some people have fond memories of these games. And I can understand why, especially if they have played them during the time of their release in the early 90s. I think another way that has helped me understand why people like these games is if I don't think of them as light gun games. They're more point-and-click adventure games, especially a game like Who Shot Johnny Rock, which is a noir-style mystery. It's actually intriguing, and I remember the first time I loaded this game up, I was pretty invested from the intro cutscene. I was actually wondering, who the hell shot Johnny Rock?
You know, me and Johnny had something in common. Dynamite. Him on stage and me with the dirty work. And then somebody plugged him. Hey, not me. I took care of him.
I mean, it actually has legit point-and-click segments where you have to find clues and you don't have to be too quick about it. I can respect that.
Now to shoot the 4 clues.
I mean, the game was actually re-released in the future as a DVD game, where you could actually play the game with the DVD remote, further cementing that if you think of it as a point-and-click game, it's a lot more appealing than when you think of them as light gun games. If you actually are curious about these ports, I highly recommend either the PC versions or the arcade versions of these games. The video quality is better and the load times as well. These aren't bad games, they're just bad ports on the Sega CD. You know what are great ports? Lethal Enforcers 1 and 2. These two games were released on the Genesis and were already great there, but the Sega CD versions take full advantage of the CD technology and have much better audio quality with a few extra voice clips. And what was always really great about the Sega CD was that it uses the same light guns from the Genesis. This Konami Justifier is compatible with all but one of the Sega CD light gun games, and that game just so happens to be Corpse Killer. It's odd though, because I remember reading somewhere that the Sega CD version of Corpse Killer was the only port that had light gun support. So what the hell? Well, guess what? Corpse Killer is only compatible with the Sega Menacer. Yeah, that bulky thing that uses batteries. So if you're stuck without the Menacer like I am, I just go with the Sega Saturn version since it has full screen video with slightly better quality. And if you're thinking about getting a light gun for your Sega CD, I'd highly recommend the Justifier over the Menacer. Just look at the games that are compatible with each. The only real problem is that the pink Justifier is a designated second player light gun and cannot be used unless you have the blue Justifier. And now if you want the pink Justifier, it commands high prices on eBay due to its rarity because of the fact that it was never on store shelves. You had to purchase it from Konami directly by mail order. The only way to connect the second player Justifier is through a phone jack on the bottom of the blue Justifier. Why is this? People say it's because you're supposed to use the Konami Justifier by plugging it into the second controller port so that you can have a normal controller in the first port to navigate the menus. I'm actually pretty sure there's a different reason, especially because the Justifier can navigate menus just fine with the trigger button and start button alone. Due to the phone jack connection method of the pink Justifier, it can actually be used on either a Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis blue Justifier. So maybe they just thought they only had to make one version instead of two separate ones for each console. Well guys, if you're looking for a really good light gun gaming experience on a classic Sega console, I'm gonna have to recommend the Sega Saturn. Sega Saturn has House of the Dead, Virtua Cop 1 and 2, Area 51, and a couple of other pretty neat titles. So that's pretty much all I gotta say guys. Until next time.